For 10 years, Mobile Suit Gundam portrayed full-scale war on both the small and large screen. Entire colonies have been gassed or destroyed, meteors dropped on the planet, and nuclear warheads unleashed with wild abandon. When Char's Counterattack released in 1988 and put a bow on the original series characters, fans were left wondering, what's next? Would Gundam continue on, or would that be that, with Sunrise and the creative teams moving on to other, newer projects? Of course, we know that Gundam would continue for many years, but back in the late 80s, things weren't so certain from a fan perspective. The team at Sunrise decided it was time to give someone other than the series creator the reins to have their very own Gundam show, although they were not ready to greenlight a full 50-episode, very costly series. And so, we were given our first Gundam OVA. Really quickly, for those that don't know, OVA stands for Original Video Animation, and essentially what these were smaller scale series released direct to home video with no prior TV broadcast. The widespread availability of home VCRs and Japan's incredibly lucrative economy in the 80s led to a huge demand from the animation industry. People literally could not get enough of what they were seeing on TV and in theaters, leading to the rise of shorter, sometimes more graphic, releases to home video stores. Bandai, never one not to jump on a burgeoning market, would release tons of OVAs throughout the 1980s, and Gundam would be no exception. Of course, these shorter style OVA series would be a great place for studios to experiment and create different types of stories in both established settings and brand new universes. Up until now, Gundam's forte has been that of wide-reaching stories. Narratives that span from the reaches of space down to the politics of the Earth's sphere. So it makes sense that Gundam's first OVA would be a more intimate and personal story. This marks the first time that a Gundam story would take place in one location and with a smaller set of characters. It lets us get to know the players in the story on a personal level very quickly, and that makes the violence and action so much more visceral and even terrifying. It also marks the first time the majority of the characters we follow are Zeon soldiers, which is a thing that's really only happened a few times in one-off episodes up until now. So before we move on and take a look at the more controversial side of Gundam with things like F91 and Victory, let's take a look at a smaller, more personal story. This is Gundam 0080, War in the Pocket. We begin our story by getting right into the action. A Zeon submarine dispatches a mobile suit team to stop the launch of a Federation shuttle. After a brief but impressively animated battle between the Zeon suits and Fed GMs, our Zeon team is unsuccessful and they watch the shuttle blast off into the atmosphere. First, let me talk about the animation. This looks about on par with Char's Counterattack, which is a feat in and of itself. Of course, there's way less action in this show, but technically speaking, I just really love the detail and line work of both the mechs and the new pilot suits and character designs. The Zeon pilot suits and officer uniforms have had an update since 1979, and I have to say they look pretty good. This story takes place at the very end of the One-Year War, and it's kind of a treat to revisit these classic suits. The Zaku 2 in particular is such a classic look that it's great to see it recreated in such amazing detail. The scene then transitions to the neutral Side 6 colony of Rebo, an idyllic place to live, honestly. Side 6 is a self-governed cluster of colonies that maintains a good relationship with the Federation, much like Zeon used to before declaring war. As such, this place is untouched by the hardships and loss that combat inevitably brings, and even though this war has raged on for a year and cost the lives of half of all humanity, Side 6 is relatively unaffected. So when we meet our 11-year-old protagonist, Alfred Izuruha, it isn't a shock that he's been playing with his friends and attending school with a carefree attitude. Like a lot of real kids, Al is enamored with war and soldiering. He draws Zeon mobile suits in his notebook and plays war with his friends in the local park. To him, war is something distant that happens on TV. You know, it happens to other people. Al's outlook on the war definitely hit close to home. Much like Al, I grew up watching war on TV. I was 11, much like our protagonist, when 9/11 happened, and being an American, I still remember the exact day and time when I first saw the news coverage. Of course, I was young and more concerned with playing Final Fantasy and Power Rangers with my friends than I was with the prospect of war. And so as I grew in my teenage years, war on the news was just a fact. It was just something that happened. Kids around me played soldier at recess, we drew tanks and other war machines in notebooks, much like Al drawing as Zaku. I mean, this show just hit the nail on the head for me. It gives a look at a window of time that I had nearly forgotten about in my own life. Al argues with his school friends about whether or not the Federation can win the war and if they even have mobile suits to begin with. One of his friends shows him a Federation rank badge, saying that he got it from his brother. After school, Al heads to the spaceport to meet his father, who's arriving on a shuttle. He grabs a camera, hoping to get a picture of a Federation mobile suit that he and his friends believe to be at the spaceport. He doesn't spy any mobile suits, even after sneaking in past security, and only gets a picture of a huge cargo container. Afterwards, he lies to his dad about his grades in a scene that makes my stomach churn because I did the same thing when I was 11, and I know exactly how this conversation feels. Adding another layer of depth to Al's situation, his parents appear to be separated, which is another thing that he struggles with. On the way home, Al runs into his old friend Christina Mackenzie, who has also recently returned from Earth after having joined the Federation. We then see the next day at school where Al and his friends are arguing about the Federation and Zeon once again when the unthinkable happens. A giant explosion dominates the horizon as Federation GMs and Zeon Zakus begin a battle within the colony. As a viewer, we aren't given context for the battle, and unusually for Gundam, we don't even get to see cut-ins of the pilots, just huge war machines causing destruction. Strangely enough, this battle is accompanied by a upbeat, almost jaunty tune, which I guess makes sense since we are seeing it from the perspective of an 11-year-old boy. Al observes a damaged Zaku fly over his school and crash land in the nearby woods. He gives chase and comes upon the wreckage and the blonde-haired Zeon pilot, Bernie Wiseman. Bernie lets Al hold his gun, and Al is really excited about it. In fact, maybe a little too excited. This kid definitely needs therapy, and there are a few times throughout this show that support that for sure.
You're gonna let me hold it? All right! Yes, Mom. 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 Yes, Mom.
All right, Al, before we eat, I want to talk to you a little bit about your father.
You're getting a divorce?
Oh, no, dear.
God, please give me this one thing. I don't even need anything from Santa. I swear I'll be good forever. I won't pull any pranks on anyone anymore. I mean it. I promise. And I won't torture or kill frogs for fun anymore.
Anyway, Bernie ends up trading a Zeon patch to Al in return for the disc on his camera, which he realizes has pictures of the Federation hangar at the spaceport. Al is pretty happy with that arrangement, and he's even happier once he gets back to town and finds out that school's been cancelled due to the battle. Yippee! Bernie gets picked up by another Zaku and heads out. Soon we catch back up with him as he's assigned to a special operations unit, replacing a soldier that was recently killed in battle. Cyclops' squad is a battle-hardened crew of characters led by Captain Steiner Hardy, who has a really cool mustache. Following Captain Steiner are soldiers Gabriel Garcia and Mikhail Kaminsky, two pilots willing to do whatever they need to get things done. Their commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Killing, yes, his name's literally Killing, it's pretty on the nose, orders the start of Operation Rubicon, a mission with the goal of capturing or destroying a prototype Gundam mobile suit that they believe to be hidden at the neutral colony of Side 6. We see them prepare for the operation, and one thing I love about this series is all the planning that we do get to see. For instance, Cyclops' team has to sneak their mobile suit into the colony in pieces in all these big cargo containers so that it doesn't get discovered by the Side 6 custom workers. This includes flying through a battle in a civilian cargo ship with a dead body next to him, and spending multiple days gathering information and reconstructing their mobile suit. Back in Al's perspective, he's kind of lazily going about his day after the excitement of seeing the Zaku and meeting Bernie earlier in the week. Out of sheer coincidence, Al notices that Bernie is driving a shipping truck down the street, and he's able to catch up and hop on the back. Unfortunately, Al falls off the truck, but being the bratty little shit that he is, he goes to the police station and tells them that the truck hit him in a hit-and-run accident. This leads the cops to find the warehouse where Cyclops' team is located. The cop almost gets killed by one of the team members, but Al intervenes when he realizes what's going on, telling the police that Bernie is his brother and the hit and run was a lie in order to get them to find out where he was working. Al then supplies the Zeons with information about the suspected Federation R&D facility at the spaceport, causing Captain Steiner to assign Bernie to watch Al and make sure he doesn't tell anyone about them. This sets up a situation where Bernie and Al spend a lot of time together, and Al begins to look up to Bernie as sort of a big brother figure rather fast. To Al, Bernie is a hero to look up to. He's someone that's out on this great adventure, not just wasting their life away on this boring colony. And Bernie feeds into this too, telling Al he only needs one more kill to become an ace pilot, something which is a total lie. Bernie sort of bites into this hero fantasy of Al's and allows himself to indulge in the childish charm that comes with the territory of being some hotshot pilot. While looking after Al, Bernie meets Chris. Well, meets is a strong word, as she mistakes him for a prowler and bashes his head with a baseball bat. After he recovers from the blunt force trauma, Al tells Chris that Bernie is his older brother from his dad's previous marriage, who happens to have just returned to the colony from Earth. Chris takes the bait, and not only do the two get along, there's actually some chemistry between them, definitely a little mutual attraction going on. Chris continues training on the Gundam Alex at the Federation base, destroying enemy mobile suits before being taken out by a Rick Dom. She comments on the magnetic coating causing the reaction speed to be incredibly fast, and the 360-degree display being too much for one person to handle. I loved this line, as it's a callback to both the original Gundam getting the magnetic coating upgrade and to the cockpit design of the mechs in Zeta Gundam. A random engineer even mentions that the Alex is meant for a new type pilot and is being sent to the White Base. Pretty cool little name drop. All while this is happening, Al and Bernie are scouting for the Federation base. They take a giant risk that could blow the entire operation and infiltrate the base by performing a spacewalk. Al actually is able to capture some pictures of the Gundam Alex before hiding from soldiers on top of ceiling pipes. I do like that this show's aware at how dumb this was, as Bernie gets smacked around for taking such a giant risk. We see Garcia get the plans for the Fedi base from an information broker anyway, so it was just Bernie being impulsive and indulging in Al's childishness. Some final preparations include sneaking into the base the professional way, with uniforms and an actual plan. We see Garcia plant bombs at the base and Bernie chew out Al for saying he wants to visit the base the next day. Cyclops' team lays out its plan to destroy or steal the Gundam. Mikhail pilots one of the coolest mobile suits that we've seen so far in the MS-18E Camphor, a fast assault mech that he uses as a diversion, driving it right down Main Street. I know that Gundam has a pretty hard stance on the whole war is bad debate, but come on, the Camphor is just so cool. It has a giant mech-sized shotgun. How do you not love that? While Mikhail performs his diversion, the rest of Cyclops' team infiltrate the base using stolen uniforms. With everyone freaking out and running around, it's pretty easy to get near the hangar, and they get found out because Bernie told a dude he was from Australia in a really bad accent. Also, I may as well mention it now, in the dub, Bernie is voiced by David Hayter, so if you ever wanted to hear Solid Snake put on a bad Australian accent, here you go.
How about you?
Yeah, got here a week ago as well, mate.
Hey, you have a funny accent. Where are you from? Sounds kind of Australian.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Sydney.
A gunfight erupts in the hangar as Bernie, Steiner, and Garcia gun down soldiers while trying to make it to the Alex. The violence depicted in War in the Pocket is no joke. It's actually shockingly realistic, and they don't shy away from showing it. Also, the tonal shift of Bernie joking around with Al earlier to him blasting Federation soldiers with a shotgun is just so jarring, and good on them because it should be. During the fighting, Steiner is shot, and Garcia is also gunned down while making a desperate last run to blow up the Gundam. I should also mention that Al also gets into the base and gets wrapped up in watching the firefight, because of course he does. He actually gets caught up in Garcia's explosion, but is relatively unharmed. Chris finally shows up and boards the Gundam Alex, blasting through the wall and confronting Mikhail in his camphor. And honestly, it just stands no chance when up against the Gundam's superior firepower and armor. We see Killing get news that Operation Rubicon has failed, and he performs a hostile takeover from his commanding officer. He comes up with an all-or-nothing plan and sends a Zeon fleet with a nuclear warhead to destroy the entire colony in a bid to get rid of the new Gundam. When Al hears of this from Bernie, he tries to convince him to destroy the Gundam, but it's a no-go. Bernie reveals that the Zeon patch that he gifted Al was a bug to spy on him, and Al leaves mad that Bernie won't fight for the colony. Unfortunately, the police don't believe Al either since he lied to them before. It takes Bernie overhearing a terrible conversation from a drunk woman at the spaceport bar to decide to stay.
Even for Francesca. I bet you're probably glad I'm out of your hair, huh? I really hope that you enjoy your life with her. No, I'm not drunk. Yeah, I had a little to drink, but I'm not drunk.
To me, it seemed like Bernie decided to indulge in that childish side of his once again and decides to stay on the colony and fight for something that he believes in. Al learns that his father is coming home to the colony on Christmas Day, the day that Zeon will blow it up. Oh yeah, this is totally a Christmas show, by the way. There's tons of Christmas trees and Santas everywhere. There's even a Christmas evening scene. So if you ever want to have an incredibly depressing holiday, you can just throw War in the Pocket on for the family. Yeah, also, Al has an existential crisis when he learns his dad will be coming home. Poor kid. Al and Bernie meet back up after Bernie decides to stay and help. We get a pretty fun and cool montage of the two repairing the Zaku from the first episode. Although, isn't it a little weird that the cops didn't come and get this thing? I mean, they do have a nuclear reactor for an engine, so I'm a little concerned that the colony security just, left it there. They're able to acquire a Heat Hawk axe and some grenades from the supply truck that Cyclops' team left behind in a rented parking space. And they also set up some smoke bombs in the forest. They plan to lure the Gundam away from the city and into the park, limiting the damage to the colony. Bernie gives Al a disc and package, telling him to watch the video on it if he loses the battle, and they say farewell. The day finally comes as Al and his mom pick up his father from the spaceport. He's late and explains that his flight was delayed because there was a battle and a Zeon fleet surrendered to the Federation. He also mentions that the Zeons were carrying a nuclear warhead. Al freaks out, knowing that Bernie has no reason to fight now, and tries to catch up to him to stop the battle. Tragically, Al is just too late, and Bernie engages the Gundam Alex in a short and brutal battle. The result is Chris dealing a fatal blow to Bernie's Zaku, causing it to explode while Al watches from the sidelines helpless. We learn later that while Chris was only slightly injured during the battle, Bernie was turned into hamburger, which means that the only person who would ever know who he even was is Al. We then get to watch the video that Bernie left for him, and it's essentially a will, telling Al that if he loses the battle, to take the information in the package to the police, as it's proof that they'll need to evacuate the colony. Some time goes by, and we see a speech at the half-destroyed school. Most of the kids seem pretty bored and unattentive, but Al is affected. He ends up crying instead of laughing like his friends. He's the only one who knows who Bernie was or what he did, and being an 11-year-old just has no way to process it. We now see that Al has gone from this gung-ho mecha fan, someone who was psyched to see a Zaku fly over the top of their school, to a person who has realized and experienced the horrors of war firsthand. Someone who's lost somebody very close to them. Al has been fundamentally changed on a personal level. It's a story about how even a faraway war can reach us and change us as people. Mobile Suit Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket is a small story and a short experience, though that doesn't mean it has any less merit than the other entries in the series. In fact, if you're someone who's been looking to get into Gundam and you don't want to commit to a full 50-episode series, or you just don't like the 70s style of the original show, I think you could definitely start here. War in the Pocket is self-contained enough that you don't need outside knowledge to understand what's happening in the plot. The animation is great, blending high budget with that classic 80s style, and the mechs are some of the coolest so far. In the end, it's a story about a starry-eyed kid who's bored and fed up with his boring life. Al gets swept up in this grand adventure, and in the end, he's forced to realize the horrors of war far before he should have to. For me personally, War in the Pocket is a great example of what Gundam really is all about at its core. It's a through and through anti-war story that's so grounded and realistic when it comes to the violence that I feel myself feeling bad for enjoying how well done the combat scenes are. If that's what they're going for, well, good job, because I definitely felt uncomfortable watching some of the violence. Mobile Suit Gundam's first OVA was a hit, a real home run, one might say. From here, we are going to look at the next piece of media released, a movie called Gundam F91, which is, divisive to say the least. Join me next time for Mobile Suit Gundam F91. See you next time. Hey there, and welcome to the end card. As you can tell, I am feeling much better. No more COVID in this here system, so that's good. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this one. 0080 was really sad. I got really sad watching it, and I hope F91 is less sad, because that's what I'm about to watch right now, actually. I'm watching it right after recording this outro, so yeah, let's throw some videos up on the screen. I'd really appreciate it if, I'll probably throw the Grandia video up there. Like, you know, obviously the gaming stuff's a little bit less popular on the channel, but hey, it's still fun. I still like doing it, so we'll throw that up there, and probably another thing. I will be doing some non-Gundam anime coming up soon, probably in June. I wanted to announce that I'll probably be able to do, like, weekly videos. If not from here on out, then, like, coming up. Like, we'll be able to do a video a week, which is pretty fucking sick. So some non-Gundam anime stuff I really want to do, like Pat Labor and like Vampire Hunter D and stuff like that. So again, thank you for watching, and I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and look forward to the next video. Bye bye.